Okay, so today we're diving into the world of Kyrsten Sinema.
This should be good.
Yeah, you've given us a ton of info on her.
Yeah.
Articles, op-eds, we even got some campaign finance data in here.
Oh, wow.
So clearly you want, like, the no-holds-barred truth. Is
Absolutely.
she like a maverick,
Mm.
someone who defies labels, or is she more like a chameleon, adapting for her own personal gain?
Uh,
I guess that's what we're here to find out. Grifter or gifted?
I love it.
Right. It's a
Yeah.
good one.
It's a really good one.
So what I find really fascinating about her is her journey. Like, it really does defy easy labels.
Yeah, it really does.
She starts out with Ralph Nader's Green Party, and then she somehow ends up as a Democratic senator,
Right.
who then goes independent, and now she's raking in millions from all kinds of industries.
Yeah.
It's no wonder people have no idea what to make of her.
Right. Everybody's confused from like her former allies to her political opponents and even like donors. They're all just like, what is she doing?
Yeah. Yeah, totally. And to really understand her, I think we need to go back to the beginning. Like, her background is so unusual for a powerful politician.
Yeah.
We're talking social work, Green Party activism.
Wow.
It's just such a far cry from the Senate.
Yeah. I mean, think about it this way. In 2000, she actually ran on Ralph Nader's Green Party ticket.
Oh, wow.
So that gives you like a really good look at her early political leanings. But then after 2 unsuccessful bids for office in Arizona as like a progressive or an independent, she just shifts gears completely and runs as a Democrat. So, I mean, it begs the question, right? Was this like a real evolution of her beliefs? Or was this like a calculated move to gain more power?
Yeah, okay, so that's a huge leap.
Totally.
And it makes me wonder, does power change people?
Mm,
Or does it just reveal who they really are all along?
right. That's the $1 million question.
That is the million-dollar question.
And it's something that I think we need to keep in mind as we kind of go through the rest of Sinema's story because it gets more complicated.
Oh, yeah, it definitely does. Especially when we start looking at her fundraising. We're talking millions of dollars from CEOs, Big Pharma, Goldman Sachs. I mean, you name it, she's got it.
She does. And it was even happening when other Democrats were like denouncing this corporate influence.
Total.
So it really makes you wonder, was this just savvy politics or did she actually just sell out?
Right, right.
And thankfully, you gave us her campaign finance data.
Yes.
Not just like some opinion pieces, which I think allows us to really look at this in a more granular way.
Yeah.
And when you look at the timing of some of these donations, especially those that surround some of her key legislative decisions,
Yeah.
it's definitely a little eyebrow raising.
It is. So, for example, you flagged that between April and September of 2021, Sinema collected over $3 million,
That's right.
which is her biggest haul
Yeah.
outside of her 2018 Senate election.
Totally. And what's even more important is that this isn't pocket change from a bunch of small donors. This is like serious cash from groups like Amgen, the big drug manufacturer. They gave her at least $21,500 just that year, which made her their second biggest recipient in all of Congress.
Wow. And that was just a few months before she opposed those efforts to allow Medicare to negotiate lower drug prices,
It was.
which, of course, would have directly affected Amgen's profits.
Exactly. And, I think it's really important to point out that just because somebody gets a donation
Right.
doesn't mean that they're going to, vote one way or another.
Right.
But, I mean, these large contributions, they do create kind of an expectation that you're going to look favorably towards whatever their interests are.
Right. It's like it might not be direct bribery,
Okay.
but it creates a system where those with the most money have the loudest voice.
Totally.
So let's move on to another big controversy, the whole filibuster fiasco.
Oh.
This is really where I think people started to see her as someone who was like totally willing to break with her party,
Yeah,
even if it meant like alienating former allies.
totally.
So can you remind us like what exactly went down?
Yeah. So back in 2022, there was this big push for voting rights legislation. And Democrats, they wanted to change the filibuster rules to pass it. And, for people who maybe aren't familiar with the filibuster, it's just a tactic in the Senate that allows a single senator to block a vote on a bill, even if the majority supports it.
So basically one person can hold everything up,
Exactly.
even if everyone else wants to move forward.
Yep. And Sinema, along with Joe Manchin,
Right.
they refused to change these rules.
Really?
They argued that it, protects against drastic policy swings, but Democrats were furious.
I bet.
I mean, it resulted in her being censured by the Arizona Democratic Party.
Wow.
And she even lost support from groups like Emily's List, that powerful political action committee
Oh, right, yeah.
that focuses on electing pro-choice Democratic women.
Okay, so that's huge. Like, they actually pulled their support.
They did. They issued a statement saying that they saw her decision as, a blow to voting rights and the electoral system,
Yeah.
and also as a betrayal to all those people who had worked so hard to actually get her elected.
Wow.
So, yeah.
That's like a political earthquake. So did she make like a principled stand, or was she just protecting those corporate interests?
I don't know. It's tough, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because I think there are valid arguments on both sides. But, Sinema defended her position. She said that she had promised Arizonans that she would be an independent voice for the state,
Okay.
not for either party. But a lot of people just saw this as kind of a convenient excuse to side with powerful interests, especially given her fundraising.
Right.
It really just adds more fuel to that fire.
Yeah. The grifter or gifted debate.
Exactly.
So let's look at her op-ed that you included.
Yes.
This is in the Arizona Republic.
Mm-hmm.
And she's explaining her decision to become an independent, which happened in December of 2022. So she's basically saying that she's, tired of partisan gridlock.
Right.
She wants to be a voice for everyday Americans who are being left behind.
Mm-hmm.
What'd you make of that?
Well, I mean, first of all, it's important to point out that this came right after the midterm elections,
Right.
which were pretty contentious.
Yes.
And, the Democrats barely held on to their majority.
Right.
Thanks in part to Sinema and Manchin.
Right, right.
And it also kind of coincided with the growing frustration within the Democratic Party over her opposition to some of Biden's agenda, especially like tax increases on corporations and wealthy individuals.
Okay.
So it's kind of interesting timing, isn't it?
It is. It is very interesting timing.
It's possible that she just felt disillusioned by all the partisan gridlock and wanted to kind of chart her own path. But it's also possible she just saw the writing on the wall and decided to position herself as like the swing vote,
Right.
wielding even more power.
So was it like a genuine rejection of the system, or was it, more of a savvy power play?
Right. Who knows? I mean, I think it just really comes down to how you interpret her motives, which, again, that's the heart of the grifter or gifted question.
It is. It really is.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, let's move on to her life after the Senate.
Yeah.
You included a New York Post article that highlights her, shall we say, lavish spending habits.
Yes.
Almost $1,300 for a single meal at Nobu Tokyo.
Yeah.
I mean, that's some serious sushi.
That is some serious issue.
So is this just her rewarding herself after years of public service? Or is this a sign that she's out of touch with, like, the average person's struggles?
Right. And it's not like it was just a one-time splurge. Like, the article details all this luxury travel.
Oh, wow.
High-end hotels, exclusive events.
Oh, my gosh.
Paid for, using leftover campaign funds.
Oh, so she's still sitting on all that money.
Yes, she is.
Nearly $10 million, right?
It's close to $10 million, yeah.
Even though she's decided not to run for re-election.
Yeah, so it's like, what is she going to do with all this money?
Yeah.
Right? I mean, some people are saying lobbying,
Okay.
leveraging her connections
Right.
for personal profit. Others are saying maybe like a consulting firm,
Mm-hmm.
helping corporations navigate the world of politics.
I see.
And then there's that wild card, right?
Yeah.
A potential presidential run.
Oh, really?
I mean, hey, she's not afraid to shake things up.
That's true.
But let's be real, it's a long shot,
Oh.
even for somebody as ambitious and strategic as Sinema. But she's playing it close to the vest,
Yeah.
Keeping everybody guessing, won't say what her future plans are, won't even say who she voted for in the last election.
Really?
It's all very calculated,
Wow.
this aura of mystery and intrigue.
I mean, it's almost like she's like crafting a narrative.
It is.
Like she's this political enigma, but like, does it feel authentic? Or is it just a persona?
Right. I mean, that's the heart of it, right? Grifter or gifted. Because on one hand, she's super skilled.
Yeah.
I mean, she's achieved remarkable success in a short amount of time, breaking barriers, defying expectations, gaining power.
But on the other hand, like what she does and what she says, it often seems at odds.
Totally.
And her motives are still not clear. It just feels like something's not adding up.
It does.
Yeah.
So, I mean, what does all this mean for our listener, right?
Right.
I think the main thing is that she's a walking paradox.
Okay.
She embodies, the promise of American democracy,
Right.
but also the pitfalls.
Right.
This potential to, transcend these partisan divides, but also like the way that money and ambition and power can just completely warp even the best intentions.
It is a sobering thought. In a system like ours, where charisma and controversy often just drown out, substance and accountability,
Totally.
how do we even know who's actually working for the common good?
Right. And who's just playing the game.
Yeah.
It's tough. It requires like critical thinking,
Yeah.
a healthy dose of skepticism, and a willingness to just, look beyond the facades, the spin, and figure out what the real impact is of these people who are trying to lead us. You got to ask those hard questions,
Yeah.
Who benefits? What are the consequences down the road? Does it align with what they're saying?
You've given us a lot to think about today. Kyrsten Sinema.
Yeah.
A puzzle, a paradox, and just a reflection of how complicated politics can be.
Yeah, she really is all of that, isn't she?
She is.
And remember, the whole grifter or gifted thing isn't about reaching a verdict.
Yeah.
It's about looking at things from different angles, thinking critically,
Yeah.
and then, coming to your own conclusions.
And that's what the deep dive is all about.
It is.
So thanks for joining us on this exploration.
Absolutely.
And until next time, keep asking those tough questions.
Yes. So last time, we were talking about Sinema's decision to not seek re-election in 2024.
Right.
And how that really, just threw a wrench into Arizona politics.
It did. It totally did.
Yeah.
Her announcement back in September really did shock everyone,
It did.
especially in Arizona where she was already facing a tough re-election battle.
Yeah, and it's not just the Democrats who are surprised. I mean, even the Republicans, she had them on their toes, too. Remember, she was even hinting that she might endorse a Republican.
Yeah, she was really walking this tightrope.
She was, between the two parties.
Yeah.
And I think that really made her a target for both sides. Democrats felt betrayed because she was unwilling to support Biden's agenda.
Totally.
And Republicans, they saw her as an opportunist.
Yeah, she was more interested in her own political survival than actually representing either party.
Exactly.
So it all comes back to that same question.
Right. Grifter or gifted?
Yeah. Was she a brilliant strategist, or was she genuinely trying to find some kind of common ground?
Yeah. Was it all just to benefit her? Or was she actually trying to get stuff done for her constituents? It really depends on how you interpret her motives.
Right.
And her decision not to run again, it didn't make things any clearer.
No, it didn't. So now we have this three-way race in Arizona.
Yeah.
We got Democrat Ruben Gallego,
Yes.
Republican Kari Lake,
Yeah.
and then the possibility of Sinema running as an independent.
That's right, although she has hinted at potentially endorsing one of the other candidates.
So break it down for me. What are the possible outcomes? What could actually happen?
Okay, so first we have Gallego. He's trying to position himself as the true progressive in this race. He's really trying to contrast himself with all of those corporate ties that Sinema has.
Okay.
And he's highlighting her, blocking parts of Biden's agenda. His whole message is basically Arizona needs a senator who will fight for working families.
But it's not going to be easy for him, is it? Sinema's still popular.
No, it's not. And she's got a ton of cash on hand.
Right, exactly. And then you've got Kari Lake, the Trump-backed Republican.
Right.
Who very narrowly lost the 2022 governor's race.
She did.
She's going all in on the Mejia base.
Yeah, hardline stances on immigration, election integrity, all of that.
She hasn't exactly been quiet about her criticism of Sinema.
Oh, no, she's called her a sellout.
What?
Said she betrayed Arizona voters.
Wow, okay.
So, she's very polarizing, but she knows how to energize her base.
Yeah, she does. So what happens if Sinema actually does decide to run as an independent?
Oh, man, that's the wild card.
Yeah.
That could totally change everything.
Yeah.
She could pull enough votes from both Gallego and Lake to force a runoff election.
Oh, wow.
Which would just drag this thing out for, months.
Yeah. And we have to remember, this is Arizona.
It is.
The political climate is already pretty heated.
It is.
Remember in 2020, we saw those armed protesters at the ballot counting centers?
Yeah, fueled by all that misinformation about the election.
Exactly. So throwing Sinema into this mix, as an independent, it could just make things even more explosive.
Yeah, it'd be like pouring gasoline on a fire.
And the stakes are so high. Arizona is such an important swing state. control of the Senate could actually depend on this race.
Absolutely. I mean, it's like watching a political thriller
Yeah, totally.
play out in real time.
Yeah, it is. It is. So beyond the Senate race, like what else could be impacted by Sinema's decision?
I mean, it could have huge ripple effects, right?
Okay.
Down the ballot,
Yeah.
impacting those House races, the state legislature, even local offices.
Wow.
It just shows how much every single vote matters in a state that's as divided as Arizona.
Right, right. It's a reminder that in a system like ours where every vote counts, every candidate is important.
Totally.
And Sinema's decision to go independent, it just adds another layer of complexity and uncertainty.
It's like trying to solve a Rubik's Cube that's changing colors constantly.
Totally, totally. But it's a really fascinating case study
Oh, it is.
in how personal ambition, political maneuvering, and a good dose of controversy can really shake things up.
Yeah, and it just leaves everyone wondering what's next.
Exactly. What is next? And
Yeah.
speaking of what's next, it doesn't sound like Sinema's planning on just fading away.
No, not at all. It seems like she's enjoying this newfound freedom. She's traveling, she's got those lavish dinners, she's dropping these little hints about her future plans.
Okay, so what do we think? What are people saying?
Well, some people think she's going to go into lobbying,
Okay.
Use all those connections.
Mm,
Others are saying maybe consulting,
okay.
advising those big corporations on how to navigate politics.
I see, I see.
And then some people are even saying, get this, a presidential run.
A presidential run? Really?
I mean, hey, stranger things have happened. Sinema has never been afraid to defy expectations.
Okay, but hold on. I'm still stuck on that $1,300 sushi dinner.
Oh, yeah, that's hard to forget.
I mean, for some people, that's their rent.
It is. And it really does make you question her priorities, especially when you think about how many of her constituents are really struggling to make ends meet.
Right, and it feeds into that whole perception that she's become more aligned with, the elites, the wealthy donors,
It does.
than the average person.
Yeah, it's like she's completely transformed from this champion of the people to, a friend of the powerful.
So is this the real Kyrsten Sinema? Or is this all like
Yeah.
an act?
Right. Is she a deal maker, or is she just an ambitious climber? I mean, is she really interested in public service, or is it just about her?
I mean, as we've seen throughout this whole deep dive, there's really no easy answer.
No, there's not. She's complicated.
Yeah.
She defies easy categorization. She's been praised and she's been criticized.
Yeah.
I think people are going to be debating her legacy for a long time.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right. You're right. Her story just reminds us that in politics, that line between grifter and gifted can be really blurry. Even the most well-intentioned people can be swayed by, money and ambition.
It's true.
So how do we know who's genuine and who's just playing the game?
That's the million-dollar question, right?
Sure.
Requires critical thinking.
Yeah.
A healthy dose of skepticism
Yeah.
and a willingness to look beyond what you see on the surface.
Okay, so we've talked about Sinema's career, her controversies, her motivations, but we haven't really dived into specific examples of her spending. In the next part, we'll take a closer look at those expenditures and what they might reveal about her priorities and values. All right, so we're wrapping up our Kyrsten Sinema deep dive, and
Yeah.
we've talked about her journey, her decisions, her contradictions, but now I want to focus on, the lavish spending
Yeah.
that's been raising eyebrows. It's not just about, the optics of a former senator, spending a ton of money at fancy restaurants.
Right.
It's about what it says about her priorities.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we've seen how she acted in the Senate,
Right.
but what she's been doing since leaving office, I think, gives us more clues about what she's really all about. Remember that New York Post article?
Oh, yeah, about all that spending.
Yeah, the one with, the $1,300 Nobu Tokyo dinner.
Yeah, I mean, come on. Even I think that's a lot for sushi.
That's a lot of sushi.
And it wasn't just, one time. It's consistent. Luxury travel, high-end hotels, exclusive events. I mean, it's a lifestyle that most people in Arizona, they can't even imagine.
And she's sitting on all this campaign money.
Yeah, almost $10 million, right?
Yeah, even though she's not running for re-election. What is she doing with all that money?
Well, that's the big question. Some people are saying, maybe lobbying, using her connections to make some money. Others are saying maybe she'll start a consulting firm,
Okay.
advising companies on how to deal with politics.
I see, yeah.
And then there's that wild card, the presidential run. I mean, she's not afraid of attention.
No, she's not.
But let's be real, a presidential run, that's a long shot.
It is. It is. Even for Sinema.
Yeah, even for her. But you know what? She's not telling anyone anything. She's keeping everyone guessing. No one knows her future plans. She won't even say who she voted for in the last election. It's all very calculated.
Yeah, it's like she wants to be this mysterious political figure.
Yeah.
But does it feel genuine? Or is it all just for show?
I mean, that's what it comes down to. Grifter or gifted, she's obviously very skilled,
Yeah.
right? I mean, she's achieved a lot in a very short time. She's broken barriers, defied expectations, she's gained power.
But her actions and her words often don't match up. And her motives are still a mystery.
Yeah, something just doesn't add up.
Okay, so what does this all mean for our listeners who've been with us on this deep dive? I think what we've learned is that Kyrsten Sinema is a walking contradiction.
She is.
She represents both, the potential of American democracy, but also the dangers,
Right.
the possibility of bridging those partisan divides,
Mm-hmm.
but also how money and ambition can corrupt even the best intentions.
It's a good point. And her story really shows us that there are no easy answers in politics. Even people who start with good intentions can make choices that ultimately benefit themselves at the expense of the people they're supposed to be serving.
It's kind of a depressing thought. In a world where it's all about charisma and controversy, how do we even know who's truly working for the common good and who's just playing the game?
That's the challenge, right? You have to think critically, be skeptical, and look beyond the surface to see what's really going on. Ask yourself, who's benefiting from this? What are the long-term effects? Does this align with their supposed values?
Wow, you've given us a lot to consider today. Kyrsten Sinema, she's a puzzle, a paradox, a reflection of how complicated politics really is.
Absolutely.
And, the whole grifter or gifted question. It's not about finding a definitive answer.
No, it's not. It's about looking at things from different angles, thinking for yourself, and coming to your own conclusions.
And that's what the deep dive is all about.
Exactly.
So thanks for joining us on this exploration.
Yes, thanks for listening.
And until next time, keep asking those tough questions.